The mission of the Health Research Council of New Zealand is to invest in high quality health research. That's our duty. That's the task that we carry out on behalf of the taxpayers of New Zealand. We have biomedical health research, we have Māori health research, and we have public health research. Those are the three key areas. Our reviewers come from all over the world and are of great assistance to us in ensuring that the research that we do approve, that we do invest in, is going to be of the highest possible quality and therefore increase the likelihood that the findings will be of great significance and benefit. There are some remarkable examples of how these program grants have succeeded.
One success the Health Research Council is proud of is the Dunedin Multidisciplinary Health and Development Study, directed by Professor Richie Poulton at the University of Otago.
The nature of our study is to follow 1,000 people across their life, and we measure them intensively as they're aging. And the reason we do that is to try and pinpoint the first signs of emerging problems, be it in the mental health area, be it in the physical health area, be it in terms of development of normal social relationships, with the idea that if you detect the early emerging signs, you can intervene early, minimise the difficulties that might ensue, and in the best of all worlds, you might even prevent the development of the problems totally. What we've done is, in the behavioural area, pin down specific genes that interact with certain life experience to predict very costly problems such as depression and antisocial behaviour and violence and psychosis. This work now is described as groundbreaking, and people are now talking about a paradigm shift within behavioural genetics as a result of the work that we really started in this direction. And of course that couldn't have been possible without the Health Research Council's support from the very onset of the study 35 years ago.
Meanwhile, at the University of Auckland, Professor Richard Fall's team have been making inroads into understanding and treating neurodegenerative diseases.
Professor Fall's work is enabling us to understand that actually the human mind is capable of regeneration. That is a really significant breakthrough.
For people with brain disease like Alzheimer's, Huntington's, Parkinson's, epilepsy, where brain cells die, the only thing we've been able to say is that more cells are going to die. But here we've been able to say, well, now we know we can actually make new brain cells. We've found that the human brain actually tries to repair itself. We actually found evidence that we still have stem cells in our brains, and we found this by doing very careful studies on the human brain tissue which had been bequeathed to us, and we found that these cells proliferated, they divide, they multiply, especially in patients with brain diseases. We believe the potential is that if we can understand this process of neurogenesis in the human brain better, if we can find out what stimulates these cells to go and make the cells that die in Huntington's, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, we may have a potential repair process. This is turning around brain research. This is giving a new perspective. We never even thought we could repair our brains. Well, we can. So it's exciting. It makes me come to work in the morning, I can tell you.
Professor Ian Reid and his team have proven that calcium keeps bones stronger and healthier over time.
Osteoporosis is a process by which our bones gradually get frailer as we get older. What we're achieving at the present time is we're stopping the process of bone loss. But wouldn't it be great if when we see someone who's 75 and has the skeleton of a 75-year-old, if we could actually build some of the strength that's been lost back into that skeleton, so that person greatly reduces their fracture risk to maybe the level that it would have been 20 or so years earlier.
Everyone, I think, is aware of the fact that there are some unfortunate inequalities in the health and well-being of both Māori and Pacific people in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And it's important that the Health Research Council continues to invest in high-quality public health research, which is geared to understanding why those inequalities continue to exist and what can be done to improve them.
Māori get heart disease about 10 years younger than non-Māori, and they have much higher rates of heart disease, and we want to know the reasons why this happens.
Dr. Vicky Cameron and Suzanne Patama are working together to establish these reasons by studying cardiovascular risk factors amongst Māori communities in Hawke's Bay and Canterbury.
What are the different factors that make up a really complex equation around what puts Māori at risk for cardiovascular disease, and why do we have different types of symptomology and presentations than non-Māori?
We know generally what the risk factors are in the general population, but we don't really know what those risk factors are in Māori communities. And that's really the purpose of this research, to try and work out, are there any different risk factors that we should be looking at in Māori communities to actually diagnose people effectively and treat them appropriately as early as possible.
The Obesity Prevention in Communities Project, or OPIC, is addressing obesity in Pacific communities.
Obesity is the major public health issue facing the Pacific community in New Zealand. 60% or 2/3 roughly of Pacific children living in New Zealand are either obese or overweight based on international criteria.
Obesity plays a huge role in terms of heart disease, diabetes and cancer.
And there's going to be huge costs to the health system in New Zealand, and also huge personal costs than people expected.
OPIC is really about addressing the issue of obesity and overweight in communities.
And we know we can do something about it because we haven't had it at this level before the last 2 or 3 decades.
We found a number of key factors that were contributing to weight gain in young people. And these were missing out breakfast, missing out lunch, watching too much TV, drinking too much fizzy drink, and not doing enough physical activity. For the first time, we're trying multi-interventions.
We're hoping that we're successful in terms of tackling a major public health problem for the Pacific community. But if we are successful, the benefits will flow on out into the wider New Zealand population.